Hey, it's almost Christmas and well, I just received the new XDJ-1000 produced by Pioneer, and I was really looking forward for these players because I initially started, I don't know, 2003, something like that, with the CDJ-1000, the Mark 1, with the CDs for sure. And then I slowly drifted to Native Instruments Traktor. And well, I was always satisfied with all the different available options provided by Native Instruments Traktor. Unfortunately, I always realized when playing longer decks I had some outages or something, just whatever, my computer took a while to just load the next track, and I wasn't really 100% sure that it's running all night long. And I mean, as you can imagine, such a dropout is not the, let's say, the perfect thing and the perfect experience for guests. Therefore, I was always looking into the opportunity to go into a Pioneer set or into a set of two individual players, being able to run their stuff on their own, being rock solid at the same time, and having the advantage if one unit just drops out, the other unit still can continue to play. So this is, first of all, my biggest advantage I see playing with two individual devices. So I've already installed them, I already unpacked them, and now I'd like to well, turn them on, right? And let's have a look at the devices. If they go on the very first time, well, it takes a while. And you can see it's already version 1.02, while on the website you have version 1.00. I don't know what they changed. There's no release note for 1.02, but I don't mind. So if you started the very first time, and I installed my GoPro over here, so it looks a little bit tweaky and scary, I have to admit, but I wanted to show you the full canvas which is being displayed on the XDJ. So when looking at the XDJ the very first time, I thought, well, the display is not that bright. Well, there's an app for that, I was about to say, but no, there's a setting. So going into the utilities, you can see LCD brightness and turn that to 5. I guess if you have a lower light club, you don't necessarily put it to LCD brightness 5. But especially here in the recording situation, I wanted to make sure that I have a bright display so that we aren't interfered here by the external light. Okay, so let's go through it. Let's just leave the menu. When I just start the player like that, it looks a little bit, well, like a player, right? So it's telling me, well, Rekordbox is obviously the application which is being forced by Pioneer, because you can see Rekordbox over here, you can see Rekordbox over there, and if you open the website of Pioneer, it's telling you Rekordbox here and there and everywhere. So and obviously you have a Rekordbox button. So the very first thing I did was starting Rekordbox on my computer and realized, well, the player doesn't connect to Rekordbox. And I didn't really realize why, but there's one interesting thing at Rekordbox. When you fire up Rekordbox the very first time, it actually, well, fires up, everything is fine, but the very first thing you need to do is to hit the link button. There's a link button on the lower left side of Rekordbox, which actually enables the connection between the player and your computer. Obviously, you need to make sure that your network is properly installed, that you have a switch in between the devices and the computer. And if you want to connect your iPhone or iPad, you also need to have a kind of a wireless network available. Coming a little bit back to what is being shipped with the player, well, you get a power cord, you get an RCA cable, and you get a network cable in order to connect your player with your network. And you get a quick instruction how to unpack all the stuff and how to connect your player to your mixer. If you are looking for a longer manual, and I'm not sure if that many people are looking to manuals. Actually, I did. You have to go to the Pioneer website, and I'm going to give you the link as well afterwards, and download the manual manually. and check out all the available options. But what I wanted to show you today is actually explaining the options here in this short tutorial. So I've started the player, I linked the player already to Rekordbox, so if I now hit Rekordbox, I would be able to connect to my Rekordbox. First of all, I wanted to go a little bit through the different knobs and buttons over here. So you have a knob over here, you have some buttons over there. These are mainly for browsing. You don't have that many buttons on the player, which is a little bit weird, but if you are used to buttons, well, you are going to miss the buttons for sure. If you are used to touchscreen, so if you are switching from a iPad device to something like this, I guess you are used to a buttonless scenario. I'm a little bit of a button and knob guy, so I'm missing real buttons, I have to say, because when I'm in a club situation in the night, I'm just used to, so my fingers are used to where they are, and they can tell my brain where they are actually, and I don't have to look at it, in fact. Here, with the monitor, you have something like what I heard is being called Serato phase, because you have to see what you are actually touching. Because if you are in different sections, the screen obviously shows you different things at the same time. So let's do something, let's go to Rekordbox. So you can see the player is immediately connected to my laptop and shows you a selection of tracks which are being loaded into Rekordbox in my computer. You can search by artist, or by album, by track, by key. Key is a really interesting feature, especially if you like to play songs according to their actual key. It sounds way better. There are different tutorials on playing by key on YouTube, as well as some other channels. So I highly recommend looking into this particular section. It's not that important right now for the tutorial or for the actual introduction to the player. So that's why I go to search, and I can search my track on my own. So this is a pretty neat feature which comes with the player, which is a keyboard. So you don't have, if you are used to the XDJ-1000 or the XDJ-900, you have this needle search where you could actually just find the right letter of the keyboard by going from A to Z. I think this is a little bit more convenient because you can just type in the name and then you're ready to go. So let me just select the track over here. One important thing with the actual track over here is you can see that there are some hot cues already associated with this track. This is what I did with Rekordbox previously. So if you have a look at Rekordbox over here, you can see I've stored the cue points already for the track, so that these cue points are being loaded automatically into the player. Why are they loaded into the player? Well, if you come from Native Instruments Traktor, is quite obvious because they are assigned to the track. If you come from the Pioneer side of the house, so if you previously had a XDJ-900 or XDJ-1000, hot cues are a little bit different because the hot cues are actually independent from the actual track. So if you have a hot cue loaded already on your previous track and you are already on the next track, you still have the hot cues from the previous tracks, because that allows you to switch quite fast between different tracks. I'm going to show you this particular functionality later on, but first of all, let's have a look at Rekordbox here. At the info section of this particular track, you can see that I ticked a box over here which is called allow to autoload hot cue to CDJ. Well, obviously this is also relevant for XDJ. And by ticking this box, the player automatically loads the hot cues associated to this particular track. So if I go to the performance section over here, and here's a perform button on the actual screen, you can see there is a hot cue for A as well as a hot cue for C. So okay, so if I would play the A button over here, we can hear automatically the track is being started and the track is playing. So if I hit C, I'm going to the next one. I can go back to A and I can do whatever I want, right? So the fun thing over here is this is immediately, right? Pretty interesting. What I found a little bit odd is that I would use such a function quite often while playing in a club, because I'm just playing by hot cues quite often. In fact, that's what I do with Native Instruments Traktor. So I thought it's a little bit weird that I have to press the button over here and I have to search it. So it's easy to just press with your fingers right next to it. And when now hitting the Q button, I'm already at a different section. So the cool thing is that it automatically starts, right? So it starts playing once hitting the button, and I can switch from one thing to another. So, okay, let's stop it over here. The cool thing here is the quantize button. So if I go to quantize, and if I start the track again, I can hit it as often as I like, but it stays in the quantize. It stays quantized so that I cannot just jump here and there without messing it up, right? So that's a huge advantage of the quantize functionality. So obviously I can add yet another hot cue if I would like to. So let me just quickly browse through the track. Like over here. Let's make a cue over here. Okay, so I'm here and I'm not exactly sure where I am. So the cool thing is I can just go more into depth, and then I see where I am. So taking obviously the big jog wheel allows me to browse through the track. So I can just, okay, and I want to create a hot cue over here, and then it's already stored. Quite easy, right? So that's about hot cues. Another really interesting thing is beat jumping. So and I can go back beats, and I can go 4/4 back, which is really interesting. So I can really jump through the track or loop things manually, more or less. So I don't need to really loop these items. So this is the performance section. First of all, the beat jump, the hot cues, which I can record, and the call button is important when I didn't preload something. So I have to press the call button beforehand before I know that these cues are actually associated to the song, which I found it a little bit, as I said, I think it's a little bit weird that hot cues are not 100% associated to the actual track. I think it would be really great if there would be a kind of an indicator showing me, hey guy, the hot cues which are loaded over here are not the ones which are associated to the track, right? So this is really, really interesting and something which I would recommend. There is an indication over there though, so let me show you something. Let's go out of the performance section and let's go to whatever. One of my playlists, select a song over here, and let's add over here a hot cue. So here are the hot cues, but you can see these hot cues over here, but you cannot see them in the track. So if we go back to the previous track, you can see A, B, and C are in this actual track. If I go go to the performance section again, I see A, B, and C, right? So it's the same, A, B, and C. Okay, so if I close the performance section and go to the other track, so this one, I don't see A, B, and C in the large timeline. But if I go into the performance section, I see A, B, and C as a hot cue. So obviously, this A, B, and C doesn't belong to the hot cues of the track. Well, it's kind of obvious, and you already recognize my explanation took already, I don't know, a couple of seconds. So if you are playing in a club, you really need to know what you are doing over here, because otherwise you might mess it up entirely. So I'm not quite sure if this is really the way to work, but I think there is some room of improvement for the actual screen over here. So what I showed you right away was an interesting feature, what I think is load previous track. Because with load previous track, you are quite fast jumping back and forth from one track to another without really messing up with your large canvas of your large screen of your computer, which sometimes again gives you the Serato phase experience, and you completely lose track of what's going on right in front of you while playing at a club. That's why I recommend this as a pretty neat functionality. So okay, so let's go back to this track over here, and here you see something which I realized can take a while. It's saying now loading track. I don't know what's going on. So it's actually the network, which might take a while actually there's nothing going on in the network other than just to switch the computer and the actual player. Well, the track is now loaded, which is great. So I can go back to the performance area and I can just kick it off, right? So, okay, the track is playing. I can jump back and forth. And here's one of my favorite functionalities, which is the slip button. The slip button allows me to do something like this, and the track continues to play, right? So it sounds like this. The cool thing with the actual jog dial is, well, you see where the needle is supposed to be, so in the red circle. And the white circle is telling you what's actually going on, right? So if I backspin and stop exactly there where the needle is again, it sounds a little bit like it's just a 4/4. And it allows you really nice things, right? Something like this. Right, so if you know where you are in your track, you can really mess it around a little bit with the jog wheel. Another thing I like with the slip functionality is if you take the touch release knob over here and you don't put it to the short thing, so you don't do something like this, but you put it to the middle, you can do something like this. Right, so it's not just braking, but it goes slower. It sounds a little bit like a drop of a turntable. But the track continues to play. So. This is what I really like with slip. Another thing is obviously you can loop, right? So you can jump and mess around it. Okay, that's a little bit too much, I admit. But that's a really fun thing with the slip functionality. I really like to mess around with this one because it's a really nice and neat effect, which is just right away. And it's also cool because you have the big jog wheel, and you have all the functions by hand. The buttons are pretty big, even though they are in a display, but it's really easy to go ahead with it. Another thing is, well, now I'm just spinning back, hitting the slip button again, and then going back a while. The track continues to play, right? So that's pretty cool. And you can also see where the track is playing, so you go back, right? But the white bar actually continues to play. So the yellow bar is where I'm just spinning, but the white bar keeps playing. That's really interesting and really neat with the slip functionality.
Why do you freeze? Why do you freeze? No, please take one step forward, 'cause
Okay, another functionality I wanted to show you is the actual integration of the DJM-900 Nexus with the player, which is fader start. I never used that in the past, and I'm not really sure if I'm going to use it in the future, but it's pretty neat. So you can hit fader start for the actual channel and activate it, and once you spin up the fader, the track is supposed to play. Give me a second. So I activated the crossfader functionality so that I have the channel 1 set to A, channel 2 set to B. Once I go to B, and the nice thing is it jumps back to the cue point, right? So you could do things like, well, easy scratching, of course. And you can also do a perfect fader start without worrying about the actual deck. You can mess around with the other deck on the other hand side and just activate it, right? Without thinking about details where the button is, and just activate it. I'm not sure if it can go a little bit messy by just having too many functions and really knowing what's going on, but I think it's a pretty nice integration, and it's pretty well done. So and it's just well done because the DJM-900 is also connected to my network as well as the player, so they know exactly what's going on, and they can just go ahead with it. Okay, so next let's go a little bit over the overall functionality of the player. You obviously have a Q button. You might be used to this guy. You can easily switch back to the beginning of the track by having these buttons. You can search within the track, so you can do something like this. If you are playing and you are scratching, you can also do a needle search, which is interesting. So you had the needle search before on the XDJ-1000, but you can now do it actually on the LCD. So we can do something like reverse, which is interesting, especially if you're coming from the Native Instruments Traktor side of the house, because Traktor doesn't allow you to reverse a track, which is interesting, but it still doesn't work in Traktor. If you press play and pause, play and pause is being associated to the touch release button, which is interesting if you do it in combination with slip. Again, over here. So let me go out of this loop mode. This is what I said initially. You have multiple things at the same location, and depending on in which area you are, so in which context you are, just things are just disappearing and are just mainly gone, right? So if I now hit the pause button, the track pauses, right, and goes slowly into pause. So let's make it a little bit slower again, right? But you can continue because the track continues to play. You can see it again over here. You have the white bar going ahead and the yellow bar stopping. I think that's a pretty cool combination of the slip and the play pause button. So going ahead with the play pause over here, well, you have the big tempo adjust, and you have a selection of different tempo sizes. So you can go from 6 to 10% to 16% to wide. So if you go wide and if you go to minus, you stop the track, obviously, right? And then you can quickly or slowly start the track, something like this. Okay, that might be boring for everyone who is used to a Pioneer player, but it's interesting, right? You can hit the master tempo button, so the player maintains the actual track while the tempo changes. What I was a little bit curious about was the master tempo section. It's just showing you dot 1 to 0 and nothing behind it. So that's a little bit weird, especially because if you are looking into Rekordbox, you have a finer tempo adjustment than just over here. And a finer tempo adjustment could be sometimes extremely helpful, especially if you're just adjusting the tempo really in minor steps. Well, obviously you can see over here on the percentage, it's showing you, well, I'm changing the percentage while the master tempo remains the same. And that's not that nice. I think they could have added one more fine-grainer number here to the actual display. So, but that's just my 2 cents. You can change the jump mode. That's also a long-lasting feature available in the players. So you can, now you just are able to adjust it, and once you hit the vinyl button, you have the full vinyl control, and obviously the good old vinyl thing over here is appears on the jog wheel. So okay, the next thing is over here the what is it? The knob, which first of all allows you to just fine grain what's going on, and you can see here that the display, I'm not sure if that's represented in the video as well, it's not as fast and responsive as you might be used to it using a digital DJ software. So I'm not sure if it's just, what, I don't know, 20 frames per second or something like that. So it's a little bit staccato. It's not that bad, but it works, and you still have the full display over here, and you can just fine grain it or just leave it over here. One other thing I believe is really interesting is the bars section over here, which shows you where the actual track is, and it's also showing it to you for the other track. So if you have one more player, the other track is being represented over here as well, so that you can get the tracks in sync. Obviously there is a sync functionality. I'm going into the sync functionality later on. You have a master button over here, which just makes sense if you have a secondary player, and you have a sync button, which is also important if you have a secondary player. Another thing here, the white line is not just telling you, well, this is the end of the track, but it's indicating how much is being loaded into the memory of the actual player. One more thing which is great of these players is that the player is always looping a 4x4 beat, so that in case something really ugly happens, so if somebody takes out the network cable, or if somebody just takes out the USB stick, the player continues to play with the last beat which is being played right now. It loops it automatically in case of an emergency, and then you have the ability to just go to the other player and load the next song. That's a great emergency function from my point of view. Another functionality, which is the looping functionality, that is something which I'm used to with the XDJ-1000 Mark I as well. It's just a pretty simple loop, right? And well, that's not the best loop I ever did. So let's just jump a little bit to the front. So. So I have almost a 4-beat loop, but it's a little bit off. So what I could do, I can correct it manually by pressing this button and fine grain it, and then I can go with the search button over here and can just tweak it a little bit. So it's right over here, going to the beginning, doing the same over here, and it sounds quite nice. Well, I could also just press this button and I'm ready to go, right? So these guys are interesting for looping whatever, a voice or something like that, and bringing it completely off track. This is great for DJs who love to do some innovative freeform stuff, which is not in sync at all, but sounds pretty awesome. So I highly recommend messing around with this function, playing with it, and really going ahead with it. So here's a reloop and exit functionality, as you just have seen. I went out of the loop. If I hit it again, I'm back in the loop, and I can go out of the loop. If I hit the quantize button again, coming back to quantize, I can go into it, but the player makes sure that the whole track is being quantized. So all of this is part of the performance section, and everything else is, well, if I would play, I would always go into the performance section because it gives you the hot cues, it gives you all the buttons to all the important steps which you need to hit if you are playing. And if you go out of the performance section, you can just browse or do some other things. If you like to continue to use your computer, that's, by the way, something I'd like to do, is you can also load the tracks into the player by using Rekordbox on your iPad, on your iPhone, or on your computer. So when I read the very first ready for iPhone announcement on the Pioneer website, I was a little bit scared that I now need to connect my iPhone to a club player. That sounds to me a little bit unprofessional, to be honest, but it's a really neat feature because, so if you're going, for instance, if you're going into a club and a friend of yours is playing because you are whatever, long-lasting DJ friends, you can easily go to him, connect your iPhone to the local network, and select your songs, and then mess around and play around with your DJ colleague without exchanging USB sticks and all these kind of stuff. You can also say, hey, here's the latest track I just downloaded. Do you want to load it into your player, and do you want to play it? Yes, sure. Go ahead. And for promotion, this I truly believe, for a promotion point of view, it's an awesome functionality. Okay, so let's go ahead one more time. There is a USB plug which I can use to plug in my USB stick, and I'm just doing it. So once the stick is in the plug, it starts to blink around over here. I can go to USB, and I have exactly the same menu as I had it before. I can go into my folders, and I can just load a track over here, and then I'm ready to go. So it's almost the same like with Rekordbox. The advantage is, well, it's direct attached storage. It's just running over here. It's showing me exactly the same information. The cue points are being stored in the USB stick. If I connect the USB stick back to my computer, it syncs back all the cue points which I might have put onto the USB stick while playing. And everything is being maintained in Rekordbox. So it's a little bit more offline file management and a little bit more file management in general, compared to having everything in just one big fat library, such as in a Native Instruments Traktor. But the cool thing is you are independent of your devices. You can just walk around with a USB stick, or what I think, and I truly believe that is the future, you can just run around with your phone and load all the tracks which you have on your phone onto a player and start playing at a club right away without the need to carry around anything with you, which I believe it's a tremendous advantage compared to, well, what are the tracks which I wanted to carry around, so I have to load them to my USB stick. Nope, I normally have my latest tracks anyways on my phone, and my phone is something which I normally always have with me. So that's the thing about USB. If I go to the other player and I have linked both players with each other, so I go to link, and I can do exactly the same functionality which I'm used to using CDJs, so I can access the memory stick by just going to link, going to the player, select some songs, and then I'm ready to go. So one more thing I wanted to show you is actually the functionality about keying. So if I see here the key of the actual song, I can have a look at the other player and I can see wherever I'm browsing, it's highlighting in green the songs which fit into this particular song in regard to keying, which is really cool. So and when I go to the other player over here, I'm not sure if the camera is following, so I leave it over here as it is. I can see in the other player where the bars are of player 2, so I can easily, without really listening to it, I can visually just jump into the track and kick it off. So we can hear both tracks playing. Both tracks are in sync, which is great, so you don't need to pre-listen things. And well, it's not real DJing, others are saying. I don't mind, because it's running well. So let's activate Slip. And we hear the other song playing in sync. While this one is still playing, but I don't mind, I just stop it over here. So what I can see now, once I stop this track, and this is what I wanted to show you over here, is the fact that now the other player went being the master player, and I see the bars running of the other player. So if I want to search for another track over here, I first of all can see other tracks which are somehow in the same key, right? Or which might fit to this particular key by highlighting that they are in green. Let's just take this one for the sake of the demonstration over here, going back. Again, I'm in sync, I don't need to really worry about what's going on. It's also quantized. So what I can do with the other track now is just looping it. So, and then I can do whatever I want, right? So I can do whatever, such an echo, and just go out the track. There we go. So that's quite easy with quantizing, syncing, having the master. It's just quite fast. You jump around with the different tracks. You don't really need to worry about being in sync, but you have way more time. And that's again something I see as the future. You have way more time messing around with some effects, finding the right songs for your audience, playing more with your audience, and having more fun with DJing and finding the right songs. So therefore, well, I'm a big fan of quantizing, syncing, and those kind of things. And if you prepare your library, you have the huge advantage of you don't need to worry that much of how the tracks really feel when playing them, because you have everything prepared in Rekordbox. Rekordbox is being syncing live with your players, and you don't need to really worry about where was the break, what's going on, and those kind of things, because your tracks are perfectly prepared. And that's, from my perspective, a huge advantage compared to playing with turntables as well as playing with XDJ-1000. So I think I'm done with what I wanted to say in general with you. One thing I forgot, or I didn't really forget, but I didn't mention before, is the weight of the player. It's 3.3 kilogram compared to a XDJ-1000. It feels light. I mean, it's a little bit plastic. It feels plastic, fantastic. Well, in fact, it is. Even the buttons, so the Q button, which is made out of aluminium with a XDJ-1000, is a plastic piece. It sounds the same like the Q buttons of a XDJ-1000. So if you press a hot Q button, A, B, and C with the XDJ-1000, these buttons sound and feel the same. So it is a kind of a plastic experience. I don't know why Pioneer haven't had the money to just take a piece of metal over here. Well, vinyl is also no longer on the actual wheel here, but that's, so the button as well as the weight is something I wanted to mention. One more thing is, if you are used to a fast and responsive interface, so let's just quickly browse the track over here and set a cue point, obviously. And you just want to start right at the bass. It doesn't really work right away when you have quantize and sync on, right? It takes a while, because first of all, it is still in its quantize mode and the master player is still playing. So if I turn that off, then it works. So make sure it's a little bit of a different experience compared to your very first CDJ or to your turntable, because if you have all these funky functions turned on, the player is doing what the player is supposed to do and isn't really 100% responsive. But that's for a good reason, because it wants to make sure that the decks or the tracks you are playing are basically perfectly in sync. So that's everything I wanted to show. Thank you very much for browsing onto this video and for listening in. I hope you enjoyed that session, and well, I hope I was able to give you some more information on the very new XDJ-1000. Thanks for listening. Bye bye.